Never been to Painted Post, New York in my life. This is my first visit here. It's a beautiful place, and I already feel extremely at home because I grew up in a place very like this in rural Illinois, where a little river called the Mackinac joins a mighty river called the Illinois. And at that confluence, that was my home. And my father built the house where I grew up in on the east bank of that confluence. In 1900, in fact, on January 1st, 1900, the very first day of the 20th century, the U.S. Supreme Court made a decision, this is 59 years before I was born, that changed the course of my life and every person's life in my hometown. And when it decided to permit all the slaughterhouses in Chicago to dump their waste into the headwater tributaries of the Illinois River. The result was that the economy of my downstream community was ruined. Pollution killed the clams, and that spelled the end of the pearl button industry, which employed many people in my community. Pollution killed the fish, and that spelled the end of commercial fishing. The Illinois used to be the most productive inland fishing river in the United States. We had refrigerated cars that sent fish all the way from my home county to the fish markets of New York City, and that ended with that decision. Pollution killed all the game birds, and that was the end of hunting and the end of tourism. And with all those sustainable industries wiped out and the river turned into an open sewer, polluting industries were then started moving in. And soon not just the surface water, but also the groundwater was contaminated with solvents, including my hometown drinking water wells. So by the age of 20, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And that is a disease that is almost always associated with exposure to chemical contaminants. Years later, with the help, after I finished my PhD and with the help of a postdoc at Harvard, I went back to my hometown and became an environmental detective there, filed Freedom of Information Act requests and all those things, and discovered that I was just one data point in a cluster of cancers in Tazewell County, Illinois. And all that happened, it was set in motion because of the decision makers of 1900 who did not consider it their duty to safeguard the biological resources for future generations. And I was one of those future generations at the time. I left my hometown because it became one of the most contaminated towns in the state, and I chose upstate New York as the homeland for my own children. So I'm invested in protecting the rivers and the groundwater of this land so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. It's always annoying when the speaker's own cell phone goes off, excuse me. So let's talk about the groundwater. Below our feet, so we're not just at a confluence of these two sacred rivers, but below our feet is a prolific, prodigious amount of water called the Corning Aquifer. And it's a shallow glacial aquifer, and it's one of only 18 primary aquifers in the state of New York. And what a primary aquifer means is a highly productive aquifer, meaning it's really full of water that's used as a source of drinking water for major municipal water systems. So a primary aquifer is big, full of water, and it's the drinking water source for lots and lots of people. There are only 18 of those in New York. Only 1/4 of New York's people rely on drinking water. So this is one of the most important aquifers in the state. And this water, as you know, is now used as the club to smash apart the bedrock in Pennsylvania like a piñata for fracking in that state. And were fracking to be permitted here in New York, which right now it's not, we enjoy this moratorium that many of us are struggling mightily to maintain, then though the use of that water and the depletion of that aquifer would only increase exponentially as it's turned as a weapon against our own bedrock here in New York. And that's what we are here to stop today. So we recognize that the people of Painted Post are already being sacrificed for fracking that goes on in Pennsylvania, and we're also here to help you with that, because there are consequences to taking this water out and shipping it by rail across the border to Pennsylvania. One of those consequences, of course, is that you deplete your own aquifer. And when you do that, you increase total dissolved solids in the water. And that has health consequences for all of you. Because when you increase total dissolved solids and then you chlorinate that water, which we need to do so we don't have to worry about things like cholera, right? Then you increase the number of what's called trihalomethanes, right? So the more organic solids you have in your water, when you chlorinate it, the more chlorinated byproducts called trihalomethanes you end up with at your tap. Those are proven causes of bladder and colon cancer, including the kind of cancer I had, bladder cancer. So I feel very strongly about that. You might think, fine, I'll just drink, water from Fiji or France. Au contraire, because when you take a shower, that's the exposure equivalent of drinking a half a gallon of tap water. So most of our exposure actually comes from inhaling it. You run your dishwasher, you flush your toilet, you take a shower, those trihalomethanes end up in your air and then you breathe them in. And so we're all you all here are dependent on the Corning Aquifer whether you drink it or not. Unless you're willing to, spend $10,000 putting a whole water filtration system into your basement. I don't think many of us are willing to mitigate the problems of fracking with that kind of solution. And then you have the problem of these night trains, and those also have health effects. I brought with me the World Health Organization's new monograph, The Burden of Disease from Environmental Noise. And what this report tells us is that even if you don't wake up, if you hear engine sounds at night, it raises your blood pressure and raises the risk for heart attack. And if you are awakened by that, those problems are even worse. So whether you wake up or not, people's health are affected, and people die. People die from heart attacks. We may not know if you are the guy who dies because of the night trains or because of all the sticky buns you enjoy eating for breakfast. We can't put a name on which are going to be the human sacrifices for all the noise at night, but somebody here is going to have a heart problem because their sleep has been disrupted, and because even when you're not wakened up, simply the noise at night raises your blood pressure and interferes with the cardiac rhythms of your heart. That's been shown to be a fact. Moreover, noise at night is linked to cognitive impairment in children. That means children don't learn as well in school, they don't perform as well on academic tests, and any mother or father will tell you we're trying mightily for the best education for our children. Some of us take out huge mortgages to live in, I'm not one, happily, but take out huge mortgages to live in school districts that we know will serve our children well, only to have all that advantage be wiped out because our children can't learn because of trains rumbling by their bedrooms in the middle of the night. And we in the Finger Lakes stand with you, and we recognize these problems. We in the scientific community want to work with you to resolve these things because it's not right. It's a violation of your human rights. Yeah. The other weapon in smashing bedrock, because you can't just do it with water alone, you have to fill the water up with sand. The job of the water with 15,000 pounds per square inch of pressure is to blast sand grains into the blown apart shale to hold those stony doors ajar so the methane bubbles can get out. All right, so it's sand and water plus a whole lot of toxic chemicals. That's what fracking is. Here is that sand. This sand was mined in my home state of Illinois. That river valley that I told you about is being turned into a moonscape to get the sand out of the ground. This is sandstone that's blown apart. It's a special kind of sand. It's called silica sand because only silica sand grains are strong enough to resist what's called lithostatic pressure, the weight of the earth pushing down. This is the Samson of sand grains. All right, this was taken from my hometown of Illinois when I went back to visit my mom in May. This is what it looks like here, collected from Schlumberger right here in the southern tier, after they get done washing it and processing it and coating it with a chemical so it won't sink to the bottom when it goes around the bend when you do horizontal fracking. So this is part of the weaponry for fracking. And inside these jars, this is a known human carcinogen. Were I to release this into the air, it would be like releasing asbestos. Silica dust causes lung cancer. It also causes silicosis, which means that oil and gas jobs in the gas fields in drilling and fracking operations are killing jobs. We know from the CDC reports that wearing dust masks will not protect a worker from the harmful effects, the respiratory effects of this. So what I'm also here to say is that whether you are for fracking or against it, I love all of you. I love my children. I want jobs for all of us, all of their children, that don't kill them and don't destroy their lungs. New York, we can do better than that. Woo! So whatever side you're on, we have a common cause here, which is to find an economy moving forward that is sustainable for our children, so we don't have to send our kids off and worry that the kind of jobs that they're going to have will kill them. Fracking jobs have an on-the-job fatality rate. Leave aside the things that I study, like cancer-causing substances, but simply being killed on the job of 7 times that of other industries, twice that of being a police officer. So if you're the mother of a child who works in the gas field, you have to pray twice as hard that your child is going to come home as the mother of a police officer. That's not the kind of jobs that we want in the Southern Tier or anywhere in New York.
Right.
What's the answer to all this? How do we get to the place that we want to get to with real good sustainable jobs? Well, one thing that I'm excited about is a coalition called New Yorkers Against Fracking. And we stand ready to help you down here. That coalition, I'm proud to say, was begun when I was one of the lucky recipients last year for my research on environmental health. I won the Heinz Award. And it came with a $100,000 cash prize, which I chose to donate to the anti-fracking movement of New York.
Yeah, baby! Thank you!
On the grounds that, what better investment could I make? You know, I only live in a 1,200 square foot house. I could put my son needs in a bedroom, but what good is investing in a house if they're going to frack underneath it? What good is a college fund if my son, who has a history of asthma, can't breathe because of the air pollution that's going to be laid down, or if the water is destroyed? So I'm very proud of this mighty little coalition that now has close to 200 different groups in it. More than 1,000 different businesses have come out against fracking, and we would like to work with you to help you organize your community down here. We have a lot of ideas that have worked in other communities, so you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, but can build on the success that we've already had. And the person who's going to be here to talk to you is Julia Walsh. Julia, where are you? Okay, stand up. So, okay, Julia is the political genius behind New Yorkers Against Fracking, and she will be available to you for all kinds of personal conversations. You know that fracking is already banned in Syracuse watershed, is already banned in New York City watershed. The children of Manhattan are not more important than our children. The kind of protection that they deserve is what we deserve too, and that's what we in New Yorkers Against Fracking are working for. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sandra.